Hello guys, welcome to this demonstration for ArtCAM Pro 2011. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create this particular sign. This is for a beauty salon called Sirens, and this is what I'm going to be producing using a few of the new tools and features within ArtCAM 2011. So I'm just going to switch to ArtCAM now. Here you can see I've created a vector for the outside of my sign base, and I'm just going to create a profile now. This is going to be used for the new contour blend tool, and I'll just show you that in a minute. So I'm just going to create a rectangle here. I'm going to change the width to 40 and the height to 15, and I'm just going to zoom in on this. I'm going to go to node editing. Here you will see we have a few new options within here. As you can see, we have virtual midpoints. What this does, it places a midpoint between two nodes, and we also have maintain smooth curves. So this stops you from producing loops when you are moving your nodes. So I'm just going to remove the bottom span here, and I'm just going to move this node down to here. I'm going to grab a midpoint, move that down to there. Here you will see that turns that into a node now, and I'm just going to grab that midpoint up to there. I'm going to draw a box around these three nodes now, and just press S to smooth those out, and I'll use that as my profile for the contour blend tool. So I'm going to go onto the 3D view to do this. I'll just rotate my 0 plane around, and I'm going to toggle my vector visibility so it shows my vectors. If I click here, this is the new contour blend tool. So if I just click there, that opens up the dialog box for that. Now this tool was specifically created to combat some nasty effects within creating text. I'm going to show you that a little later on in this demonstration. What we've also found out is that you can use this tool to create some really cool effects. So what I'm going to do is select the profile that I've just created as the profile vector. I'm not going to override the height or the width of the profile vector. I want it to be this height and this width. So I'm just going to add this. I'll select the outside shape of the sign base, and this is just going to give me my sign base. So there you can see that's given me my sign base relatively easy. Some nice crisp edges. If I take a look, here you can see some really nice edges on there, and it's given me my sign base. So I'm just going to turn off the 0 plane for a moment, and I'm going to open up my front relief. Here you can see I have a relief called sign base. I'm going to open up my Clipart library now. And here you can see we have lots and lots of different clip art available within ArtCAM. We have over 500 pieces of reliefs that you can use within your models. What I'm going to do is create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Pro Demo, and then OK that. Now this is just giving me a warning saying that there are no reliefs within this particular folder at the moment, but I'm going to change that. I'm going to grab the relief and just drag and drop it into this folder. So there you can see it saved the sign base within my Relief Clipart library. So I don't need to save this sign base, this is already there. I can just use this at a future date if I wished. I can manipulate it, change the sizes, rotate it around. And what I'm going to do is just reset this layer now, as I don't need to save it because it's already within the Relief Clipart library. And I'm going to rename the layer to Sirens. I'll go onto the 2D view and I'm just going to delete all of these vectors now. I'm going to go up to 3D Model Club. Now this particular company, if you do a search online, they actually sell reliefs which are very, very high quality. If you'd like to have a look, if I click here for this fairy, just select that, and I'm just going to center this in the page and just make this quite a lot larger just so it fits the page. So there, and I'm just going to paste this straight in. So I'll close my Clipart library now, go to the 3D view just so you can see this. So there you can see quite a high quality fairy. What I want to do is to get rid of the wings and the antennas, as I don't need those because I want this fairy to look like a siren and not obviously have wings. So if I go to the 2D view, preview the relief, and I'm just going to zoom in a touch. What I'm going to do is to create a polyline around the wings, basically giving me a cutting boundary. So just zoom in here. Now I'm going to be doing this quite rough and quite quickly. Obviously you would probably spend a little bit more time doing this if you were creating something a lot better than what I'm going to be doing. So I'm just going to go around the hair here and make sure that I cut these antennae out. And then just join the vector back up. So there you can see I have a closed vector. Now I'm going to use a new tool called the Relief Cookie Cutter, and what this basically does, uses a vector as the cutting boundary. Whatever is within that particular boundary will be sent to a new layer which will have the same name as the old layer but have cookie cut at the end of it, and it will leave whatever is left on the old layer. So if you just take a look on the front relief, and when I click cookie cut now, it will create a new relief layer called Sirens Cookie Cut. If I select that, here you can see whatever is inside the vector, it has cut and moved to that layer. Here you can see that's the original drawing on the original layer. So that's the one that I want to keep. I don't want to keep the wings, so I'm going to delete the cookie cut. And if I go to the 3D view, there you can see that that's left me with my lady. So now what I'm going to do is to use the Relief Mirror Merge to merge two of these particular sirens into one. So I'm going to select Relief Mirror Merge. I want to go left over to right. If I just put my datum point on, there you can see that there is the center. So I'm going to go left over to right and apply that. So there you can see that that's merged the two sirens into each other. And if I just rotate around, you can just see it's a little bit high at the moment. Another new feature within ArtCAM is if you take a look here under the information of the actual layer, it gives you a maximum Z height, so you don't need to go over there and try and work out what the height is. So at the moment the maximum Z height is 77.118, so this is really high. What I want to do is to just scale this down, so I'm going to click Scale Relief, and I'm going to scale the height down to 10mm, and then apply that. Close that now. There you can see the information. Maximum Z height is 10mm. So I can rotate this around now, and there you can see that these two sirens are now 10mm high. So if we go to the 2D view for a second, I'm just going to delete all of my vectors, and I'm going to open up the Clipart library, go back to my folder, and I'm going to send this also to the Clipart library. So there you can see I have my sirens within the Clipart library. So now I'm going to just reset this relief layer, and I'm going to bring back my sign base. I'm just going to paste that straight in there, and then close. And I'm going to import these sirens now. Just center that. Just make those a little bit smaller, just so they fit on there. Just move these upwards a touch. That should do. Now, if I keep an eye on the bottom right hand of the screen here, it will give me a Z height when I hover over the sign base. So there you can see that's more or less 15mm high. So I'm just going to change the mode to merge high and change the start height to 17mm. This is so it adds 2mm of flat onto the sirens. So I'm just going to paste that there now. And if we go to the 3D view, there you can see that that's added the sirens onto my sign base. Now I'm going to create a little bit of a flourish around the bottom of the legs of the sirens. So the way that I'm going to do that is to go into the 2D view, and I'm going to select, let's have a look for some leaves, select Flower 13, and then just going to center that, make it a little bit larger, like so, and I'm going to just rotate that around and just move it to the left hand siren's kneecap, around about there. Going to change the start height to 15mm, so I want this to be on top of the base. Make sure the mode is merge highest, and I'm going to copy rotate this. The rotation angle is going to be 20 degrees, and I'm going to create 30 copies of this and then just paste that in. If I close this now, I'm just going to delete these vectors and go to the 3D view. There you can see it's created quite a nice little flourish around the bottom part of the siren's legs. So I'm now going to create some text. So if I just zoom in on the bottom part, I'm going to create the siren's text first. I'm going to use Seagull and make the size, let's say around 150. So just type in sirens, and then I'm going to center that and then just move that down to around about there. So if I go into the 3D view now, and I want to show you what the contour blend was basically created for. If I turn on my vectors, and I'm going to create some text in the old fashion of creating a beveled edge at 45 degrees, and just add that. Now if you take a look on most of the letters, they don't look too bad, but they are not great. There are problems with the letters, especially for instance the R and the E in the centre. you can see the lower portion of the E in the center here is trying to blend up into the higher portion on the left of the E. And what it's doing, it's just creating a blend from the top going up, and it's creating this nasty dimple effect on the sidewall of the E here. Also giving me the same effect on the R. I'm just going to undo that now, and I'm going to create the text again using our contour blend tool. This time it's going to be a linear at 45 degrees, and I'm going to create the shape. Now you see vast improvement within there. If I just turn off the vectors, here you can see it's giving me some really nice crisp text, and it's not giving me these dimples on the R and the E. You can also see the N, it's giving me some nice sharp edges now, instead of trying to blend into each other. So if I just zoom out, you can see this is giving me some really nice text. So that's basically what the contour blend tool was invented for, but we also use it for doing shapes. So if I go back to the 2D view, I'm going to just create the text at the bottom. What I'm going to do first of all is to just offset the outside vector. If I just take off the preview relief for a moment so you can see, I'm going to offset this by 35mm inwards, and then just offset that. I'm going to use this to create the text around a curve, so it's on this particular curve. So I'll just preview the relief again just so I can see where this is, and I'm going to create some more text. Again, seagull, and this time it's going to be 50 high. This is going to be called hair and beauty, and I'm going to select the hair and beauty text and the curve, hold down my mouse button until I get this pull out menu, and click wrap text around a curve. Now at the moment that's on the wrong side of the curve, so if I click text on the other side, you can see I can just move that around. I'm going to move this upwards by 10mm, so you can see that that's moved that upwards, and I'm just going to rotate this around. I can do the whole sentence, change the spacing of the text, I could change single words for instance. Let's say move that round to there, and that one to there. I can also move single letters, so for instance the D looks a little bit more spaced out, I could just move that back in. Also the H, move that, let's say the Y as well. So let's say that I'm happy with the text there now, I can just OK that, and then zoom out, go to the 3D view, and I'm ready to start machining this. Just need to do one more thing before I can start machining, and that is to create a pattern for my texture toolpath. Now what I'm going to do is not draw something. I'm going to go onto my internet search engine, and I'm going to try and find some clip art that I can just use, because I don't want to use any time by actually designing something. So I'm just going to type in flower clip art, go into images, and let's say I'm going to use this one here. Just right click on it and select copy so it goes to the clipboard. If I right click on ArtCAM and select paste, give me this box now where I can just paste in the image. I'm going to paste that in on the top left hand corner. Now if I just zoom in on this, you can see it's a really low resolution image. Just zoom in a little bit more, you can see that it's quite pixelated, lots of different shades of grey, lots of rogue pixels on the outside. So I'll just zoom out again, and I'm going to show you a greatly enhanced tool, Bitmap to Vector. Now, if you'd used this previously, you would have probably have created the vectors, then would have had to use the vector doctor to tidy them up, remove any loops or intersections, and then maybe draw a little bit on top of that. And by the time that you'd actually got something to work with, you would have probably been quicker to just trace the actual image. This is being greatly improved. If I click reduce colours, what this will do is just take out the colours of the image and just slowly blend them into one colour. So that's brought all of that down to the black colour. Now, the speckle size, that's basically a pixel tolerance size. So for instance, if I had one rogue pixel and the speckle size was set to 2, it wouldn't create a vector around this pixel. If it was set to anything less than 1, then it would create a vector around that particular pixel. The smoothness is quite self-explanatory. The higher that the value is, the more curvy and wavy that the vectors are going to be produced. The lower that the value is, the more straight and rigid that the vectors are going to be. Most of the time I'll just leave this on the default values and it works fine. I would say 99% of the time. So I'm just going to leave this on the default values now and create vectors. I can close my tool now. If I just adjust the contrast slide bar, and I'm just going to zoom in on this, you can see it's giving me some really nice vectors, and it's not following all of the jagged pixels, it's just blending the vector in. So if I just zoom out, you can see really nice vectors. These are ready to be machined, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to delete all of the inside ones though, because I only need the outside vector. So there I have my outside vector, which is a flower shape. So that saved me having to draw that, and I've produced it in a matter of seconds really, just from a low resolution image from off the internet. So I'm just going to preview my relief again, and now I'm going to create some machining for the part. So if we go to the 3D view, and I'm going to click here for my toolpaths, I'm going to select a machine relief toolpath. Just tab this onto the project tree just so I have more space, and I'm going to use selected vectors. I'm not going to use the whole relief because it would be cutting all of the zero plane, which would be quite a waste of time because I'm going to cut the part out. I could also select automatic boundary if I wished. This would automatically work out the boundary of the particular sign, but because I've already got the boundary, I'm just going to use selected vectors. So if I click the outside vector, and I'm just going to turn the vectors off for a moment so I don't see those. The finishing tool, I'm going to use a 1mm ball nose cutter, and I'm going to just change the step over to 0.5mm just so it works a little bit faster. Here we have all of the tool clearance strategies. So there you can see lots of different strategies. The raster and raster classic, a lot of people ask us what's the difference between raster and raster classic. Basically, raster from Delcam's other package called Powermill, this is a really advanced toolpath, and the raster classic is the old ArtCAM raster strategy. So anything with classic next to it is the old ArtCAM toolpaths, which we have left in there just in case you want to use those. So I'm just going to use raster, and I can also change the angle of this if I wished. So let's say for instance I didn't want to cut in X and Z, I want to cut in Y and Z. Just change the angle to 90 degrees. I could also change that to something like 30 degrees if I wished, if I didn't want the cutter to gouge into a wall, say for instance. And I'm just going to change the roughing tool. I'm going to select a 12mm end mill. I'm going to just change the step down on this to 1mm, just so I can rough out some of this portion of the base. And I'm just going to define the material. I'll just leave that at the default model thickness and OK that. There you can see that's set up my material block. Now ArtCAM's just working out the roughing toolpath. It's just generating the slices. Now remember, this is 1mm cuts, so there's going to be quite a few slices for this particular part, as it's 21mm in height, so 21 slices, and that's created the roughing toolpath. This is just finishing the finishing toolpaths, so it's just calculating that. And there's my finishing toolpath. So if I just close the machine relief now, I'm just going to click on the light bulb just so I can see my actual part, and I'm going to create some V-bit carving now on the hair and beauty. I'll just zoom in. So select V-bit carving, and it's going to be on the selected vectors. Now if I just hover over the actual sign base, I need to find out where the top of this base is. As you can see, it's -6.441. That's where I want this V-bit carving to start. So the start depth is 6.441. And select a carving tool. I'm going to select a small V-bit, 6mm. Select that. This has changed within ArtCAM 2011. Previously this would automatically be worked out for you, the width and depth of cut information, but if you were doing quite a large piece with lots of different vectors, this could be quite time consuming. It could take quite a long time to actually work out the actual information, and you may not need it. So if you do need it, you need to click refresh now, and then it will show you the maximum width and maximum depth. I'm not going to use a roughing tool. This is particularly useful if you are creating very large text, for instance. You could go in with quite a large roughing tool and then just finish off using the carving tool. So I'm just going to calculate that now. There you can see that's created my toolpaths for the hair and beauty. I can just open that if I wanted to see what toolpaths I've been creating. And now I'm going to create a texture toolpath. This is going to be just around the border of the base, so I'm going to use the two vectors that I have here as the boundary for this. So I'm going to click create texture toolpath, and this is going to be selected vectors, select a tool. Now I'm going to use quite a small tool for this, and I'm going to use, let's say, a 0.5mm ball nose cutter. Now what I'm going to do is set this vector, the flower vector that I created, as the pattern. So if I click here and click that as the pattern vector, this is going to place these flowers all around the border here. So I'm just going to select the two vectors as my boundary for the texture toolpath, and the minimum, maximum pattern width and pattern length is going to be 10mm. So I'm going to constantly create these flowers at 10mm in height and width. The depth profile, I'm going to have it modulating from 0.1mm to 0.5mm in depth, so it's going to be cutting deeper in parts than other places. And the drive vector, the step over and spacing. Step over is in X and the spacing is in Y. So this is going to create quite random flowers for me. So if I just click calculate now, you will see this place random flowers all along this border. So there you can see all of the flowers around there. Now let's say for instance I wanted to create another one of these, a completely unique one. I could also calculate it again and it would create random flowers again. So all of the time these will be random. So there you can see that's created some more random flowers. So I'm going to select those, be happy with those. If I just zoom in, just take a look at these flowers. Here you can see they are on the Z plane at a maximum depth of 0.5 millimeters. Now I need it to go onto the actual sign base. Now this is relatively easy and it's a little bit of a hidden feature within ArtCAM. If I click on texture and select here to transform toolpaths, just click on that and I'm going to project the tool and then click project onto relief. Now you can see that that's projected the actual flowers onto the relief. So this is going to cut that part of the relief. So if I just zoom back out, and I'm going to go on to my next toolpath, which is just basically to cut the part out. So I'll select the outside profile, go into toolpaths and create a profile toolpath. The finish depth, just going to do that just a little bit thicker just to make sure that it goes right the way through the material. And the profiling tool, I think I'll use the same 12mm M mill that I used previously and then click calculate. So that's created the cutout for me. So I'm now going to simulate this. So I can either right click on the toolpaths and click simulate all toolpaths, or click here to simulate all the toolpaths. So now that's creating the finishing toolpath in Y and Z. And then it will create the V-bit carving and then the texture toolpath and finally cut the part out. So there we have a finished sign for this particular beauty salon. And let's say for instance I wanted to actually see what this looked like using the correct material. I could just click simulation, change the material to, let's say, teak horizontal, and apply that, and there you can see that that's given me a much better preview. Now if I wanted to save the toolpaths, I could just click on the toolpaths and click here to save toolpaths. Now here we have the calculated toolpaths. I'll just move this from here back. So here we have all of the calculated toolpaths. Whatever is in this box on the right hand side, that is what is being saved as a toolpath. So for instance, if I just wish the machine relief, the roughing toolpath, move that over onto the right hand side, then I can select my post. Here we have all of the posts available within ArtCAM. I believe there are over 300 posts available. So it is more than likely your machine will be on there. If it's not, then we also have a generic G code which you could try out. And if you are interested in purchasing ArtCAM Pro, we will more than likely just make a post for your machine anyway. So I'm just going to use, let's say, Mach 3 in millimeters, and then just save that toolpath. I'll save this toolpath onto the desktop and then just save that. If I close that now and minimize ArtCAM, here we have the file, and I'll just double click on that, and there you can see the G code ready to be sent to your machine. So that's the end of this demonstration. I hope that you found it useful, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.